Lake Dallas Cheer would like to welcome you to
Falcon Football Weekly!
Center snapping, here we go, shot drill. Ready, set, go!
Welcome to Falcon Football Weekly, brought to you by the Lake Dallas Quarterback Club. Make sure you share the podcast out on all your social media. You can find us via iTunes or on Spreaker Radio. It's also found on the Lake Dallas Quarterback Club website or Spreaker.com. Just search Falcon Football Weekly. I'm John Piper, and each and every week, joined by head coach Michael Young. Good morning, Coach.
Good morning.
Well, hard to believe we're in episode 9. Seems like we were doing the preseason kickoff show just last week.
Yeah, I know that, football season seems to go so fast, and that's what we try to tell the boys all the time. You got to, every day counts, and it just, before you know it, you snap your fingers and you're in the end of the year, and we're getting close to it now.
Well, Coach, Friday night at Falcon Field was homecoming night versus Frisco Memorial. Another cool overcast night, perfect for an October game, actually, not necessarily for the fan base, but you mentioned during our previous time together, you were having some great practice sessions. The community had pep rallies in the middle schools and at the high school. You have everyone fired up for homecoming week. Tell us a little bit about rolling into Friday night and the preparation going into homecoming night.
Well, we thought we'd had a good week of practice, and, I have commend our fans, because the weather was terrible that day. Up until probably about right at the beginning of kickoff, and we still had a great crowd considering the weather and the forecast for that day. So it was a great homecoming night. We had a great week of practice, and it was nice to have a game where we get a lot of kids into the game that haven't got a lot of playing time, and a lot of those guys got great experience on Friday night, and it was good time for everybody to see those guys get in and do some good things as well.
I know the Falcon alumni come back, really support your program. Any surprise visitors you saw on the sidelines?
Well, we had the class of 68 here for that night, so that's a big deal to have a class from that far back come, and they got recognized at halftime, and it's always great. Homecoming is a lot of fun for the band, drill team, cheerleaders, everybody that is involved in Friday night football nights, to kind of show off to all the other people and alumni that come and kind of show the spirit and what the Falcon football and Falcon high school is like. So it's always a great night.
Well, that's strong. 50 years in the making, the class of 68. That had to be a sight to see.
Yeah, that's a long time ago, but yeah, they all look good, and we have a lot of people that are still around this community that went to school here back in the day. So it's always great to see them come out to the football games.
Was your team pretty confident going into the game? I know the record of Frisco Memorial wasn't stellar, but how was their mindset going into the game Friday night?
Well, the Frisco Memorial is a new school, and they've struggled, but the whole plan of the week was focusing on us and making sure we were sharp and we played well. We have a really big game the next week against Lovejoy, who we got this week, and we just wanted to have a great week of practice, be really sharp, not, don't play down to a level of your opponent, be really sharp and play well, and we did that.
Coach Young, I don't know if you can play any better football. You in the first half of that game with a commanding 42-0 lead. What more can you say about the performance in the first half?
Well, that's what we wanted to do, is to be sharp, and while the first group was in the game, to be as efficient and play as well as possible. And, hopefully, that stuff can carry over. Defensive touchdowns, we had 2 of them, two interceptions returned for touchdowns. Hopefully that, that kind of stuff can get contagious and spread to the weeks to come. And that would be big if we could get something like that in our next game against Lovejoy. But we had a great night, and we're excited about the way we played that first half.
Taylor Ragland of the Lake City Sun headlined his story, Falcons get mojo back. You gotta like seeing that, Coach.
Well, that's what we hope. And sometimes a game, even though your opponent is not real good, but just the spark and get some great plays offensively and defensively and special teams can get that momentum, and things in football are such a big thing. You watch teams, whether it's the NFL or college, high school, whatever you watch, people that are fans, it's just week to week, it can be a totally different game. And, trying to get the momentum and getting kind of rolling can happen in a game like this, and hopefully it'll do that for us.
You've praised your defense all season. The Falcon defense put 2 touchdowns on the board in the first half. interception returns by Daryl Miner and Ty Studhalter. What can you say about the defensive unit's play?
Well, they did a good job, and a good job against the pass. We played 2 weeks in a row against really run-heavy teams, so you're spending almost all of your time in practice against the run. So that was good for us to get some interceptions, to play good against the pass, because we're going to see a lot of pass this week, and that's going to be a big part of whether we win or lose the game against Lovejoy.
Another positive takeaway from last Friday night was the play of your offensive line, giving Depperschmidt more time to throw and protecting the quarterback position. You really praised those big guys up front.
Yeah, that's one thing that Frisco Memorial has done really well this year is put pressure on the quarterback. They have a good scheme. They know they're not the biggest up front, so they like to bring a lot of pressure, and they've caused some teams some problems in that. And I thought our offensive line did a good job of picking all of that stuff up. And, Kellen Culberson was a big part of that, and that's why he's our offensive player of the week, our center.
And offensively, you had 24 first downs, over 450 total yards. Depp finished the night with an efficient 8 of 16 passing, 165 yards, 2 touchdowns with only 1 interception. So very efficient night out for the offensive unit. Yeah,
we would have liked to have played our offense and given them more chances, but when your defense scores 2 of those touchdowns in the first half, and we're just not going to take any chances of getting anybody hurt when you get that big a lead. And it's also important for us to get some of those guys in that haven't got a lot of chances to play, but they could have even had better numbers, but our defense put some points up themselves.
And one reason Deb didn't have to throw as much, a big night on the ground, totaling 239 yards. You controlled the ground game. You did not have to throw the ball as much as you normally do. IK, Trevor Lindsay, Ladarius Fleming carried most of the load, combining for 193 yards. Like you said, the offensive unit up front really helps forge a way for those guys in the backfield.
Yeah, running game is going to be important, and kind of getting that going here hopefully kind of carries over and into this next week. But, we did a good job up front of blocking. The runners did a good job. I thought we ran really hard, and they also blocked for each other well too, which is also very important.
And you mentioned, Coach, being in control the entire game. You were able to get a lot of your second-team athletes into the ball game. How important was that to get reps in, to prepare them for maybe this week's game, future games before the season's out?
No, it's very important because a lot of those guys have not got a lot of snaps, but there could be a time where something happens where they have to get snaps. So it's great experience for them. It's, they come to work, they come to practice every day and work hard. They deserve a chance to get into the lights and play. So we're excited whenever that happens. I think the whole team is, and I think it builds a lot more energy in your whole team when those guys are getting to play some. So it's led to, I think, a great week of practice this week too.
Yeah, it's always next man up. Watching the World Series, I know Dustin Pedroia, second baseman for the Red Sox, is not able to play. So a Texas Ranger fan favorite, Ian Kinsler, has to step up. Not a bad guy to have on your second team, but we always say, hey, next man up. There could be injuries, there could be something going on, so it's good to have your guys ready to go. Coach, just segue into the Falcon Players of the Week, starting with your sub-varsity group, freshman player of the week, Connor Voles.
Yeah, Connor had a great week. He plays outside and a little bit of inside linebacker. Really smart, dedicated kid, hard worker, great to have around. And, he was a guy that kind of was going to be iffy whether he was the white team or the green team. He moved his way up. He's moved his way up into a starting position, and he's having a great year.
Next, junior varsity, Austin Rutman.
Austin plays some inside receiver and some running back. He's a good athlete and really quick. We were talking about him at practice today. We think he's going to be one of those guys that he's going to make a name for himself next year on Friday nights, and we're excited about him. He's athletic and fast and strong, and had a really good night. And our JV had a really good game again and a good win.
Well, it's always exciting for you and your coaching staff. I know you're always out at the middle school games to see these young men develop from 7th, 8th grade players into freshmen, moving their way up the ranks, JV, and then to get themselves in position to play on Friday night. It's got to be exciting as you watch the development of your players.
Yeah, that's the great thing about being in a small district like this. We get to know all of our kids really well, and watching our 7th and 8th grade, I think we have 2 really good teams down there that together could be really good. I think they're a good mix for each other as well. A couple of the better teams I think we've had back-to-back at the middle school. So our sub-varsity's been well. Our JV's been playing really well this year. So we're excited about the kids we have coming up and them developing, and I think the program just continue to win.
Falcon Player of the Week, Daniel Burks.
Daniel stepped in with a injury to Machuca, so he played in at right guard. Well, we moved Devin Holder to left tackle, and Daniel, he started the year at defensive line. We moved him about the second or third week of the season, and he's got himself in where he's able to rotate in and really help us, and he's been really good for us, and it gives us a lot of depth on offensive line, which you need.
Special Teams Player of the Week, Cole Rogers.
Cole's one of those guys that doesn't get a lot of snaps on offense. He got a lot the other night, so we're excited to see that. He's just a hard worker, one of the most dedicated kids that we have. He knows his role, and he understands it, and he busts his tail on special teams and had several tackles on the kickoff, and really, a great kid to have around. His enthusiasm, his energy for the game. And like I said, you don't have to play a lot to bring that and help your team out, and he does that.
Now, this doesn't happen. The big guys up front on both the defensive side and the offensive line don't always get the recognition they deserve. But Offensive Player of the Week, lineman number 56, Kellen Culberson.
Yeah, Kellen, played a great game. He had a couple games where he had a couple bad snaps, and he worked his tail end off to make sure that doesn't happen again. He's one of the leaders on our team and a good player, and he had a great night, and he'll continue to have good nights. We really count on him. It's a tough position he plays, probably the toughest one in football right now when you're playing center and the shotgun and all the blitzes that people do nowadays. It's a really tough position, and he's a good player.
And on the defensive side, he had a pick six. That's always exciting for a defensive player. Number 22, Ty Studhalter.
Yeah, Ty's had a good season. He's again another guy that really works hard, great attitude, made a great play on the pick six and did some other good things, and somebody we really count on. With the injuries we've kind of had at the linebacker position, it's real important, and he's playing well, and he can play all of the positions there and safety for us, so he's a very important player.
Coach Young, moving into your next opponent, perhaps the biggest game of the season thus far, your Falcons are back on the road over at Lovejoy. You square off against the Leopards Friday night at 7 p.m. Coach Todd Ford, he's in his third season as the Lovejoy head coach. They got things rolling pretty well. They're 5-1, 4-1 in district play. What are going to be some of the keys to the game, getting prepared for Lovejoy as you travel across the Metroplex?
Well, this is a really big game for both of us, and really especially us. We put ourselves in a bind with the game against Frisco, and this is a game we really need to win. We keep everything in our own hands if we can win this football game. If not, then we're going to have to rely on a little bit of help the next week. So it's really important for us. Lovejoy's had a good season. Their only loss was to Reedy. They're explosive offensively, defensively. Todd, I've known him a long time. I coached secondary with him at Newman Smith about 20 years ago. So we coached together for a couple years, and then he was on the Todd Dodge staff at South Lake. He was the offensive coordinator at UNT for a couple years. And Clayton George, his offensive coordinator at Lovejoy, was with him at UNT as well. So they know what they're doing. They're real experienced on offense, and that'll be a big test for us.
A coach like that, he does. He's been in the business a long time, about the same amount of time as yourself. Coaches like that, do you stay in touch even though you just now they're in your district? Do you stay in touch over that 20-year period, or does the communication kind of ebb and flow?
We've always kind of stayed in communication with each other. So even when we left Newman Smith, we stayed in touch, and I ran into him quite a bit when he was at UNT's offensive coordinator. He recruited here, so he dropped by here several times a year, and we've stayed in touch even when he went down to Austin for a couple of years as a head coach. So I've kept in touch with him and know his wife and his family, and he's been a friend for a long time.
Yeah, the coaching fraternity is a tight-knit group, and that's some of the relationships you make over your career are just second to none. That's phenomenal. Well, Coach, just remind everyone to get out to Lovejoy early. It's pretty good travel over there, in rush hour. I did check the forecast. It calls, we were talking before we went on air, like a Southern California type day. The forecast calls for a perfect 73-degree sunny day on Friday. Let's hope the weatherman's right on that one. We do want to thank, again, the sponsors and the support, all